Welcome to POWERinU's complimentary webinar entitled Prevent System Failure, What You Need to Know Before Starting a Tech or Tech-Enabled Business in the Philippines. This complimentary webinar is brought to you by POWERinU. POWERinU is a training, coaching, and consulting company with office in the Philippines. We have been offering free webinars regularly since January of 2019. POWERinU's mission is to partner with organizations to enable them to deliver strong business results by enhancing their talent and leadership through value-adding strategic consulting solutions. Let me now introduce our speaker for this webinar. She is the Executive Director of IdeaSpace Foundation, an accelerator for tech startups. IdeaSpace is a non-profit organization supported by the MVP Group of companies. Our speaker assumed the role of Executive Director when First Pacific launched IdeaSpace back in 2012. So this means that she has had a hand in each of the 91 startups that have entered the IdeaSpace program since it began. So everyone, please join me in welcoming our speaker, a former colleague and a friend, Ms. DIANE DUGAN EUSTAQUIO. DIANE?
Hi, Benji, Elaine, and Trina, and everyone. Can you hear me? Please type yes on the screen, on your chat box. I hope you also see the chat box. Are we good? Yes, you can hear me. Okay. Can you see my screen? I shall put it on presentation mode. Okay. I hope you can see my screen now. All right. Yes, you can see. Okay, let me start. I'm very happy to be invited by POWERinU to this webinar. And I don't know if you can tell, if you've heard me before, I am a little bit under the weather. So please, if I will be excusing myself, turning off my screen, or muting myself because I have a cold. Don't worry, I'm not contagious. All my droplets are just going to my screen and not going to you. And most likely, I just have a cold because I was frantic about my plants the other day. I didn't want them to get blown down by the typhoon. So in the rain, I was busy moving my plants in the house, and I guess all the stress got me sick. So I'm happy to be here to share with you what I know, and also looking forward to learn some things from you today. So before I start, I'd like to take a poll on the questions that we prepared. Trina, could you pull up the first question? So my first question is, I've always wanted to explore entrepreneurship, but something is just stopping me. And I would like to know how many of you who are not, if you are an entrepreneur right now, just put no, say no, or not applicable. And if you want to explore entrepreneurship, I'd like to know if you know an entrepreneur who you can talk to. Oh, 50-50. All right. And I'd like to know why you're learning. Oh, okay, why you want to be part of this session. Great. Great. Wonderful. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So we have some entrepreneurs in the webinar today, and I'm hoping that some of you will have questions or will be able to share with the other entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs also, who are part of today's session. And many of you don't know an entrepreneur who you can talk to and to mentor. So that's one reason why you need to take the first steps to get to know one, so that you can mentor. Mentoring is a very big part of the entrepreneur community. And you're attending because you're just curious. And thank you for being curious also about the organization that I am affiliated with, and that you are curious about entrepreneurship. So let's end the poll and let us go to my first slide. And as you know, I'm going to talk about tech startups today, but then a lot of it about entrepreneurship is very basic, whether it's a tech or non-tech startup, and that's what I'm going to focus on a lot today. So in a recent study, not too long ago, just last year, when people say 2019, parang, oh, that's a long time ago. But it's not really a long time ago, it's just last year. Google, Temasek, which is a Singapore-based organization, and DIANE did a survey, and they wanted to know what was e-commerce like in Southeast Asia. And the e-commerce economy in Southeast Asia is just booming and growing. As you can see, Indonesia is the forerunner. Philippines, we are, let me see, we are fourth of 6. So, and we are probably next to Indonesia. We're the next largest population. Therefore, we have a lot of opportunity in store for us in the Philippines. Next, when people look at Southeast Asia, they look at 3 countries now. The Philippines, they call it the VIP, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines. So if you look at the high birth rate, at birth rate, no? Philippines has the highest birth rate. But when you look at business density, the Philippines has the lowest business density. How many? 1 business per 1,000 people. So Vietnam, whose population is smallest compared to the 2 others, has the highest business density. So meaning there are more entrepreneurs in Vietnam for there's 1 entrepreneur for every 1,000 people in Vietnam. And in the Philippines, there's only a 0.29, not even half a person, only 1/4 of a person for every 1,000. So there's so much opportunity for us to try the route of entrepreneurship. But in a study we did last year, or no, sorry, early this year, feels like long time ago. I'm a victim of that same thing of thinking things were so long ago. The challenges when you start a business are, people say, capital requirement, market readiness, talent acquisition or talent retention, access to relevant networks, which is why I was asking about mentoring. Do you know anyone who's an entrepreneur? Regulatory requirements, economic condition, etc. And if you look at the top, or the first 4 factors, they all have a lot to do with capacity development. So developing human capital. And this is where an accelerator like IdeaSpace comes to play. We're not an incubator because incubators kind of take a slower pace at developing entrepreneurs. We are an accelerator. The reason why I mean accelerate because we need more entrepreneurs in our country. This is what brought about IdeaSpace in 2012. We have been set up as a nonprofit that advocates technology development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We have 3 basic programs. One is the accelerator program for the entrepreneurs. And because we're a nonprofit, we need to monitor our beneficiaries. And that's why we have an alumni engagement program. And third is we look at the startups who came from our program and eventually make investments in them. The reason for making investments in companies like startups that come from our program or outside of our program is to make ourselves profitable or sustainable at some point in time. Right now, as Benji was mentioning earlier, we are supported by the MVP group of companies, and we're really lucky to have very supportive corporations behind us. Our acceleration program, the very first program you see towards the left of the screen, selects entrepreneurs or selects startups, companies, through a call for applications every year. So you might hear of IdeaSpace in a few weeks or in a month. We will be opening the gates for our call for applications for 2021. Some of our startups that you may have met is Taxumo. It helps people, right now, solo entrepreneurs file their taxes because it's very hard to file your taxes. And this is also an effort to help the government also with GovTech. So getting government to be more online. Another startup that we have helped is a startup called Hiraya Water, and they help water districts distribute water more efficiently. Another one is like One Export. They help Filipino businesses go global. So there are so many startups that I could tell you about. All of them are my favorites, but I'll use up all my time talking about the startups. And our promise to you today is to help you prevent failure when you start on your entrepreneurial journey. So COVID, what has COVID done to the digital transformation of the Philippines? If you look at the data, the number of Shopify stores in the Philippines increased by 65% from the first to the second quarter of the Philippines. So it's a sign that e-commerce, as I said earlier in the first slide, it's starting to grow. But there are lots of gaps also felt by the e-commerce sellers and also the e-commerce users or buyers, because let's say, for example, you order something from a grocery and then your grocery will call you and say, ma'am, or your grocery service would call you and say, ma'am or sir, it's out of stock. Whereas you had already clicked, buy, and then you've paid. So there's no supply chain consolidation happening yet. So there's so much opportunity. There's no prominent manual in-store fulfillment. So there's a inventory in the store, but there's no inventory of what's on the shelf. And whenever a customer clicks and the picker goes around the grocery, that system is still very manual. So there's so much opportunity. There's food wastage because the farm to table opportunities are not fully completed, are not built. A lot of things can still be built. So I was going to share with you today my experience with working with 91 startups. I've seen about over 5,000 competition applications myself. Every single application that has come to IdeaSpace, I really would like to see it myself because it gives me a reading of what is out there and what the people want to solve. And I've worked with over 400 entrepreneurs. So what I share with you today is what I've learned from the 8 years I've had with IdeaSpace. But before I share it with you, I want to quote Aristotle when he said, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So you think that you know, sometimes you just have to accept that you just don't know. And I think the entrepreneurs who I know who are humble enough to accept that they don't know are actually the ones who are always learning and always doing better because they're open, their minds are open. So I'm hoping that today you will keep your mind open and moving forward, you would treasure this classic saying of Aristotle that the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So I will just share with you what I know today. And these are very basic things. So people say, how do you start a tech startup? So I say first, there are very basic things that I would like you to remember before you take the entrepreneurial journey. Lesson number one, all the dots will connect. The things that have happened in your life will connect. Why am I here? Why do I want to do this? Why did I meet that person? Why did I have to go through that failure? Why do I have to go through a course that I don't like to take? Why do my parents want me to do this? All those things you think you don't like happening in your life, somehow they will connect. It is just the beauty of life. All the dots will connect. As Steve Jobs was saying, you cannot see how the dots connect moving when you look forward. But when you look back, you'll see that everything that has happened to you is somehow connected with who you are today and what you're going to do tomorrow. Lesson number 2, your why. Simon Sinek is a very popular guy, and he talked about this golden circle. Know your why. Why you're doing things. Why you want to do something. Why do you want to go the entrepreneurial route? Why do you want to experiment? Why are you afraid to go through the entrepreneurial journey? Know your why. Always ask why. For IdeaSpace, our why is not about investing in startups. People think, oh, you're like a venture capital. No, we're not. We're a capacity development organization. It's not about investing. When you invest in companies, you're actually investing in people. Because when you invest in people, you invest in the most important capital that a company can have, and that is the human capital. Probably that's why POWERinU invited me here, because they believe in the and they're all about human capital development. Lesson number 3, when you do something, don't go halfway. Go all in. Do everything you can to make it happen, make it work. Don't go halfway. Don't try halfway, because halfway means you're not going to try your best. Halfway means you're going to say, okay, you'll give up easily. So go all in and never halfway. Just a bit. I shall excuse myself. I have a cold, as you can see. Okay, lesson number 4, believe. It's so important to believe. Believe in what? Believe in yourself, believe in people. And for me, what I have learned is that every startup that has come to IdeaSpace, or every startup that I know, every company is broken in some way. Don't feel like you're like in shambles. No, there's really something that doesn't work. But the doesn't work part is really an opportunity for you to fix things, an opportunity for you to solve things. And when you look at something that's broken and you believe it can work, I think I've seen that in all the successful entrepreneurs I've worked with. When they see something broken, they always see an opportunity to fix it. They're problem solvers. Lesson number 5 is there are no rejects. There are no rejects in this journey. Do not believe that if you're a failure forever. It's really just part of the journey. There's times when you make it, times you don't. There will be customers who say no, and there will be customers who, of course, say yes, but there will probably be more customers who say no. So there's no reject. And if your customer says no, don't just throw them out of the window. Put them somewhere in some pipeline and said, maybe not now, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, but never throw them out completely. Some people really throw out some customers completely because of ethical issues. Well, for me, that's okay. If your definition is in your business philosophy is you're not going to do business with people who are unethical, that's okay to have rejects, but almost always do not have rejects. There are no rejects. Lesson number 6, what I've learned about the entrepreneurs I've worked with, the successful ones especially, they are risk reducers. So people say, oh, entrepreneurship, that's about risk taking. Yes, they do. They take the risk, but they're actually risk reducers more than risk takers. They've taken the risk after they have calculated what the risk can do to their business. They have calculated a stopgap measure. They have calculated contingency measures. They've calculated how much loss it will have on their company or on their people if they go forward on something. So good entrepreneurs are risk reducers. They're not just bahala na. They just don't jump in and close their eyes and bahala na. No. A good entrepreneur is somebody who's a risk reducer. Lesson number 7. Bilog ang mundo. The world is round. So be friends with everyone as much as possible. If there are people you don't like, just stay away from them. If there are customers you don't like, well, sometimes you just have to grin and bear it because you need the customer. And you will need someone somehow along the way. So always bear in mind that the world is round and that you would need someone somewhere along the way. Don't make so many enemies, please. And so lesson number 8, in the entrepreneurial journey, there is a tuition. There is a tuition fee, and the tuition fee is failure. Sometimes when you fail, you feel terrible and you feel like you don't want to show your face and you're embarrassed to the max. But just count it as a tuition fee. It's a tuition fee of life and the tuition fee in the school of entrepreneurship. Failure is very much a part of an entrepreneur's journey. So somebody asked me, you talk about failure and then you talk about the entrepreneur being a risk reducer. So what? I said, when the risk reducer knows there's going to be failure, he's going to take that failure as a tuition fee. Oh, I learned something. I mustn't do this anymore. Oh, I know I'm not going to do business with that person, or that person is probably just good as a customer and not probably as a supplier. So there are things that you learn. So that's the tuition fee. If you cannot remember all the 8, there are just 3 things I would like you to remember when you start your entrepreneur journey, or if you're an entrepreneur and already experiencing some problems, I just want you to remember 3 things. 1, know your co-founders. Know the people you're doing the business with. It's important to have an alignment of your values. It's important to have shareholder agreement if you can. It's very hard. People say, I don't like shareholder agreement. Why? I say, why? Oh, because I'm talking about divorce already before we even starting the marriage. So, but that's the reality. With a business, they can have divorce, and you can have an amicable settlement in divorce. And you can go to bed and not, have nightmares if you have talked about it way ahead of time. Have bylaws and have a non-compete clause. This so prevalent in the Philippines. The business partners will start a business and then they have disagreement, and the other business partner will do exactly the same thing. So many of our entrepreneurs, who've had that experience, their learning is that you should have a non-compete clause with your co-founders. Second is, when you hire, make sure you have a code of conduct, or at least a list of things that you will not tolerate in your business. Number 3, because so many businesses in the Philippines have business integrity issues, have people stealing from the company, have co-founders not being honest with each other, apply the 4 eyes rule. Not just my set of eyes, but someone else's set of eyes. Someone who you know will also watch out for the company. It's so important to uphold business integrity. I think I've used up 30 minutes already. So I just want you to see this map all over again. And you probably can see the gaps. And my first slide said, connecting one person at a time. I don't think we can ever connect the whole Philippines until every Filipino is connected. And when we get to connect everyone, I think that's when all these islands will connect, not maybe physically, but at least virtually. And then I hope you see the opportunity to connect all of these dots. And if you see the opportunity, I'd be happy to hear from you. I'm going to stop here for now because I'd like to hear your comments. I'd like to hear from all of you and get to engage with you more than just doing this one-way thing. That's all for now. I will shift to the questions. Does anyone have questions? I'm eager to look at. Oh, okay. So do we go, am I correct? Thank you very much. I hope I've inspired you really. There are quite a number, yeah. So the first question, can you add senior high school entrepreneurs in the program as future entrepreneurs to be funded and trained? For IdeaSpace, no, but there are organizations that focus on senior high school or on young adults or in college students. And in many universities now across the country, they have technology business incubators, and they help young entrepreneurs. And quite a number of private high schools have who support the ABM track they have programs to help future entrepreneurs, and they fund them also. But that's not very many. So I'm hoping there will be more philanthropic, more maybe the alumni of the high school can help the young budding entrepreneurs. I want to ask you if you'll be giving out e-certificates. Well, that's I leave that to the POWERinU team, and I think it's yes. Indeed, go all in. Okay. Okay. So POWERinU said they don't give certificates for their free webinars. All right. If you need a certificate program, I guess you can just ask me. I can try to find you one. Okay. So are there any more? I'm in the public, so Mark, Timothy Manawis, thank you for your comment. I'm in the public sector and policy development and training. I wish you have any programs to be done with the Department of Education. Yes, IdeaSpace has helped the government, particularly the government agencies like the DOST, Department of Science and Education, the DICT, the Department of ICT, and also DTI. We've tried to work with the DepEd, but it's kind of challenging. So if Mr. Manawis, you can help me, we can probably talk more and share more what can be done. Quite a number of our startups have worked with the Department of Education, and these are in the EdTech space, and they do have modules on entrepreneurship. I really believe that if we start them young and make them pay the tuition fee of starting even a very simple business, even selling kamote or selling kamote cube. But the thing is, people need to exercise that entrepreneurial muscle. It's not an overnight thing. It's not an overnight sensation that we should believe in. I think that good entrepreneurs have gone through many failures and have paid the tuition fee. Question from Moses. As more people turn to occupy the virtual space, wait, hold on. As to virtual space, what would be your advice to make the startup stand out? Okay, so this is already what you would learn when you are in our accelerator. What is your differentiator? What is your value proposition? In this universe of offering your product, what value does your solution or your product provide your customer? So this is why we always say, know your why. It's very important why you want to solve something. Because if it doesn't spring from your internal why, it's going to be very hard to understand the customer and going to be very hard for you to articulate, to state, to define your value proposition. It's very important to define your value proposition. And as we said, the tuition fee. Fail fast. Try it, test it. If it doesn't work, refine until you come out with something that stands out, until you find something that your customer is willing to pay for. Because in my experience, among the 91 successful startups those who finished our program, I wouldn't say all of them are really successful, but my experience with all of them is that when they fail, when they learn over time, they just get better, and they're willing to refine the product, and they're able to articulate the value over time. So Larry De Vera, how do we engage and connect with IdeaSpace? My email is right there. You can email me. My name is Diane, DIANE, at ideaspacefoundation.org. And there's another question. What is the current effect of the pandemic on tech and tech-enabled businesses in the Philippines? Fantastic. I love that question because its effect is so good on, I just pulled up the slide on, if you recall, this is just the slide, oops, no, there. This is just e-commerce, as far as e-commerce is concerned. But I could tell among the startups in IdeaSpace, almost all of them are doing well because of the pandemic. The pandemic just forced so many businesses in the country to push digital transformation. Many of those who were brick and mortar, meaning they have a storefront, found themselves having no business because they didn't have a digital storefront. Maybe those that were severely affected, and I think some of those who sent their questions very early were from the travel industry. The travel industry was severely affected. But then if you know your customers, so what I'm noticing with the travel startups is they were able to shift. Like there's this one travel startup that's part of IdeaSpace. They focus on mountaineering travel. And since nobody could go out to go mountaineering, they focused on the communities that people would visit in those mountains. And in those communities, they were able to sell products from those communities. So they were still able to engage and have a little bit of business also. So they stayed engaged with their customer. But now that the travel bubble or travel is starting to ease up, they have a surge of customers just dying to go out and travel. So if you know your customer, then you probably wouldn't have lost so much business when the pandemic struck. Yes, even Taho vendors and small. So Mark Manawis also again said that even small businesses, even Taho vendors and small scale vendors should also be connected. I'd like to share with you an anecdote. We were part of this program. May I, if I can? Do I still have time? So I have this anecdote. We were part of a program with teachers, universities from Indonesia and universities from the Philippines. And the university from the Philippines, we went to Indonesia for the exchange, part of the exchange program. And the teacher from the Philippines was very proud of her students' project and the entrepreneurial project. And the project was a coin changer. So if you have a 20 peso bill and you want to break down your 20 peso bill, you just put it in a window and coins will come out. The Indonesian teachers were laughing about the idea. And the Filipino teachers got mad. They said, you don't understand, you Indonesians, you don't understand because your money has so many zeros. And then the Indonesian says, no, it's not because of so many zeros. They were saying, Can you go out of the building later and you observe the beggars here in Indonesia? The beggars are using their cell phone. The beggars have a QR code and you scan their QR code so they can transfer money to you. So even if it's small money, the beggars on the street are already using cell phones. So hopefully even Mr. Taho vendor will not have to hold physical money, and that we will have more virtual money, and that means more people be exchanging, the exchange of money will be faster, and that's very good for I think that's very good for the Philippines. So there are some questions received in all my 8 years of experience in IdeaSpace. What is the one thing that you cannot help entrepreneurs with? One thing I can't help you with is your determination. I don't have it in my book. You know, I don't have it in, I don't know any way to feed you with more determination. You have to come with determination. You may come into our program or you may go into entrepreneurship with no knowledge of the business, but because you're so determined to fix that problem, because you're determined, again, it's related to the why, right? If you know your why, you're determined to fix that problem, you will solve it and you probably will be successful at some point. So how much preparation does it need to do before a person, he or she, embarks on an entrepreneurial journey? Well, as I said earlier, you need to be a risk reducer. So what are you going to risk if you don't make money in the first 6 months? What are you going to risk if it doesn't make money in a year? So you have to be ready, at least financially, to some degree financially, because hindi naman pwede you're gonna go into it and your family is going to be hungry, or your parents are not going to be there to support you. You need to prepare all the other things that are going to affect you. So in my experience, the ones who are able to take the risk and those who have prepared well are those who have prepared 2 years of income. If you want to live the way you're living now, yes, 2 years of that much savings, so that you are not worried about putting food on the table, and that you can experiment and you can make failures and you can take the calculated risks. So third question is, I am a student about to graduate and my parents are not supportive of my desire to go the entrepreneurial route. What should I do? So many parents are like this in the Philippines, but be assured that's not only in the Philippines, that's all throughout Southeast Asia. So many parents, excuse me, so many parents are not supportive of their children's desire to go the entrepreneurial route. I think it's only because parents are protective. They don't want you to be to go through the tragedy or through the hurt, but they want you to be successful. I think that it would be good, so that you can appease your parents, is maybe work for a company or work for a startup. I strongly suggest work for a startup, because when you're working for a startup, you're going to be exposed to so many things. You know, you can be the janitor, you can be the plumber, you can be the accountant, you can be the marketing person when you're in a startup, because people wear multiple hats and do multiple roles. So the opportunity to learn entrepreneurship the most is when you're part of a startup or at least a small company. So parents want their children to, go to a company that has a beautiful, a well-known name. yes, that's good, but then you'll only learn a portion. You'll only learn that department. So if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship and be an employee, you probably should be an employee of a small company or a startup. What are the common characteristics, values of the successful startup founders that you have worked with? Okay, apart from the 8, the common characteristics that I have found are 4. One is that they know who they are. Again, know their why. They can connect the dots. They can say why they're doing this, why they want to do it. So if you know who you are, if you know your strength, you know your weakness, you know who to partner with, you know that you're not going to do business. If you say you're good in marketing, you're not going to find somebody who's also good in marketing. That's an extra resource that you won't need anymore. Kasi indun ka na eh. If magaling ka sa marketing, pero mahina ka sa accounting, you get somebody who's good in finance or good in accounting. Get somebody who will complement you. So they know who they are, and they know what they need, and they know what their team's strength or weakness is. Second is a good founder knows their customer. When you know your customer, actually a good founder is obsessed with their customer. They never try exploring what the customer needs, what the customer wants. How can you improve your service or your product for the customer, and what does the customer he or she doesn't like about your business. Everything about the customer, you have to be obsessed. What they say, think about what they think, look, see, feel, and what they hear from other people. Third is for tech, you must know how to build your product yourself. Try to learn how to build your product yourself, because if you understand how to build your product yourself, but you say, I'm not a tech person. Wait, there's so many new tech tools today. You can do an app without learning how to do code. There are so many no code.
Hi, Trina.
Yes, Benji?
Yeah.
Time's up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to my last 4th one. So I'd like to end that a good founder is someone who has good stewardship. So again, I touched on it earlier, business integrity. Good stewardship means you know how to use other people's resources well. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Diane, for a very interesting presentation. And definitely the way you answered the questions that are brought up by our participants, our attendees tonight, showed the passion that you have for what IdeaSpace is doing. It's really, really obvious as you were responding to the questions that they have brought up. Once again, thank you very much for sharing with us your insights, your knowledge about how we can really get more of these entrepreneurs up and running in the Philippines. Certainly something that we definitely need, so that we can really catch up with all the other neighboring markets, the countries that we have here, and compete perhaps more effectively in the global market. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you too. Thank you very much to POWERinU. Thank you, Benji. Thank you, Elaine and Trina, for giving us the opportunity to share.
Oh, you're most welcome. We have a couple of announcements before we officially close this webinar. Firstly, we'd like to ask all our attendees, if they have not subscribed, to please do so. Subscribe to our website, www.powerinu.com.ph, so you can get the latest updates on our events, webinars, and our free resources from POWERinU and our partners. We have our next webinar, which will be coming up in December 2. Our topic is making relationship pandemic proof. This will be given by our husband and wife tandem in the persons of Omi and Rosanne Romero. Omi is a management consultant and organizational development specialist, while Rosanne is a speaker and a trainer. Both Omi and Rosanne are actually also authors. As we transition into 2021, this is an opportunity for us to assess our relationships and learn how we can better take care of them to make them pandemic-proof. So everyone who registered in our webinar tonight will automatically get an email invite to this next webinar. And we do hope that you can join us on December 2. And please also share this invite with your friends and colleagues so that they can also benefit from our speakers. If your organization is finding ways to stabilize from the effects of disruptive forces, then you can contact POWERinU. Our transformation program will help you redesign and rebuild your organization's blueprint to success. We can help your organization recover and even thrive in these challenging times. Lastly, everyone can access a recording of this webinar through POWERiNU's website, together with all the previous webinars that we've had. You can also check our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And before we officially end this webinar, we would like to again request 10 seconds of your time to respond to a 2-question poll. This is an opportunity for you to provide us feedback so we can improve our future webinars. We will leave this poll on the screen so you can provide us your feedback, and we'd like to thank you in advance for doing so. And with that, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. We do hope that you'll join us in our next webinar. And again, please invite your colleagues and friends to join us and benefit from our resources and our speakers. Thank you very much and have a pleasant evening.